Thank you, Jeff. Newsy day here. Really a special moment for me right now, let alone certainly the transition, but just to be in front of you all. Golly, it'll be 9 years for Chris and I here at Clemson next month, in just about a month. And so count a lot of you all as colleagues, certainly friends, and for me to be wearing a different name tag here, certainly a professional dream of mine and goal, let alone being here at Clemson. And so now to be able to speak from a different dais, literally, with you all, and how that looks to continue in a great cadence with you all, just really humbled and appreciative and excited in all those words. And it's really been a month since worked through the process, and President Clemens and the board was able to appoint this role. And so it has been there's been a lot going on in a number of different sets. So I plan to touch on some of those here, of course, in any discussions. But really, just as I've gotten settled over the past couple months or past couple weeks, there's definitely been the balance. And I've gotten the question a lot of, gosh, you feel the stress, or you up at night, those type of things, versus the just the familiarity of Clemson. And so it's certainly one of those for a testament to Dan and the opportunity, certainly him bringing me here. And you all know, I know Dan back to my Atlanta and Georgia Tech days, and probably had a pretty good sense of how closely Dan and I worked together and were personally. And so there's definitely been those moments over the past month where it's been here, done that, and been very comfortable and familiar in settings, whether that's with President's Cabinet or Board of Trustees, formal meetings where we're hiring coaches, heavy decisions with staff, and certainly our group of head coaches and staff and student athletes. So it's definitely been that balance of the newness of the role and literally moving down the hallway, so to speak, but then also just the comfort and familiarity of Clemson and Clemson that I know and have experienced, and again, the experience that Dan's afforded me with that. So that balance has been really cool and exciting for it to continue to evolve. The one last thing maybe from a transitional look back, and there's certainly been a lot of memorable moments over the past couple months, certainly the past month, with a transition and understanding and being with Dan as he was evaluating different opportunities. But one of the things that I try to hold close is certainly the reverence for this position. It's a big time job, and Clemson, college athletics is a big time business, and Clemson is a big time brand within. And so I recognize maybe the weight, if that's a decent word, that comes with this role, and the decisions that need to be made, and the leadership that needs to be instilled, and how that fits at Clemson, and the need to keep Clemson. And I think back to the phrase of you stand on the shoulders of before you. And so certainly Dan and the 9 years that he and I have worked together, Terry Don before that, and his successful tenure here, and him hiring the guy that was just up here, of course, and what that's meant for his legacy, and Bobby Robinson. And so have certainly got to know and spent a lot of time with Bobby and Terry Don over the 9 years that I've been here. And so really cool the week of Christmas when the position was finalized, but before it was announced. So there was a couple of days of working through a process and some of the paperwork. I called Bobby and just want to have a conversation with him, and just to make that connection point. He's always been so gracious with his time. He just lives downtown, of course, and he's always will probably walk by the office and always happy to pop in when needed, and I'll certainly lean on that. And same, I called Terry Don, didn't get him. I talked to Trish, but then really the next day when the announcement was made and the board approved, on my drive home, Terry Don actually lives in my neighborhood, and so I stopped by. But before I got home and hugged Kristen, I stopped by and saw Terry Don, and just sat with him, and he was just kind of out and about, and sat down and welcomed me in as he always has done, and I hope always would continue to, or I'll lean on him. And so I just think that's really unique and uncommon about Clemson, and maybe this role at Clemson, again, with some of that lineage and the resources that it provides, and hopefully the relationships that I'll continue to have, and certainly Dan being still in the league and in the industry will be a great resource, and couldn't be more appreciative for his mentorship in my career, let alone for this opportunity at Clemson. So just a little bit of some look back and maybe a little story. It's just important to me and dear to my heart. I've shared with a couple of our staff, and important as I cast a vision and balance the newness and the need to continue to grow Clemson and grow our brand in an incredibly changing environment and industry, with still keeping Clemson. And that means people, and a lot of those I ticked off, at least for this role. So that blend has been really cool, and the emotions of that for me over the past month. So from today's standpoint, certainly has been a big point for me looking to today. And yeah, I've been on the job for about a month or so now, and again, I've been here at Clemson for plenty, but really today's been a big inflection point. Yeah, Board of Trustees meeting, signing day, sure, but obviously we've had a lot of things come out today with staff, and some announcements that we've been working towards and wanting to look at this this day, this moment to let those out, so to speak, and really begin to chart the path ahead. And so while there's been certainly work done, I really get excited to kind of be getting my feet about me, so to speak. I've moved a couple things, a couple folders and a laptop, and that's about it to the corner office. So I'm kind of still working out of both a little bit, but really an inflection point for me, at least mentally, as I chart through initiatives and things and moving the department forward. So look forward to kind of the next chapter here a little bit. If they're even just in months at a time, and what today's meant for that from a news standpoint, and then again charting the path ahead. So really excited for obviously all the actions out of the trustee meeting with the personnel changes and affirmations that Coach talked about from a football standpoint. Continuing to invest in football is obviously a non-negotiable, and I'm excited to have those actions today from a personnel standpoint for football. Jackie Simpson-Keir, volleyball coach, the extension for her, and excited for her to have a full off season. She was moved from assistant coach to the head coach role in a short off season coming after COVID. So for her to have a full off season and full seasons ahead, I'm excited for Jackie, and then obviously Mike Noonan, and that was about the easiest contract approval I think that I've ever been a part of with the board, coming off a natty and just how Mike's gone about it and where he has the program. So excited certainly for our group of head coaches. Obviously there's been a lot of announcements from our women's sports initiative. Today is National Girls and Women's Sports Day. So we've strategically obviously let loose our Power Leadership Academy group, which is specifically designed for our leadership group for our women's sports and student athletes. Obviously you saw end of last week and was affirmed today our gymnastics and lacrosse facilities that will be beginning to work through the construction process up by the rowing facility, and also some use for the rowing student athletes up there from a training complex standpoint. So a lot of focus there from our women's sports, and really something I think of with Clemson, just the Olympic sport background and the need to continue to invest and grow our business with football investment, but then certainly how we offer 19 going on 21 sports is just really compelling and part of my charge from a department standpoint. So a lot of notes there. I'm sure there's a lot of questions. The last thing I'll just highlight, and I know we'll have more to come over the coming weeks and months, but Clemson Plus, the announcement of our over-the-top, our streaming service that'll launch on February 15th. We're really excited about what that product is and the business model with it and how that's included with IPTAY membership. It's very different. A lot of these that you'll see within college athletics or others, right? It's subscription-based. It's a monthly charge. We've gone about the economics of it very differently in order to continue to promote and have it collected with IPTAY and grow our IPTAY base and membership. So a lot to talk on, I know, on a lot of those topics and others, but I don't know if that's a Sweeney-esque elongated opening statement or if anybody's got a stopwatch, but certainly wanted just to cover a little bit of look back in my first kind of moment here in front of you guys, and excited for it.
Graham, when you first took over, you talked about wanting to help athletes navigate the NIL and the changing landscape in college athletics. For your department, what does that look like? What does that entail?
Great question. Gosh, right, and it seemingly changes by the day. Each day there's seemingly a new article or initiative that a competitor of ours is doing. Now, certainly, have to operate lawfully within our state laws and certainly within an NCAA standpoint, and excited for the elements from a protection of a student athlete standpoint. Obviously, South Carolina law, all of them are a little different, and so there's a lot of good protections for our student athletes, South Carolina student athletes, in ours. So the confines that exist that are continuing to evolve is where you start. Education for our head coaches and our coaches, as far as what our abilities may be in the future. There's a Wayne Gretzky analogy in there somewhere, maybe, as far as skating to where the puck's going kind of idea. And I don't know. I certainly don't claim to know where it's going, but I know it's being passed and it's going somewhere quick. Where it sits today is not a stagnant stop. So there's those elements from a education standpoint, head coaches, student athletes, and then maybe the last group that I think we need to be a little bit more aggressive on is our booster community from an education standpoint, and how we make sure that they know what the rules are. And we obviously are very active from just a compliance education, but those rules are changing, and so we want to make sure that they are aware and educated on the do's and don'ts and how that would look for Clemson. So listen, there are a lot of stools on that bar, or a lot of legs on that bar stool of NIL. and it's still being built. And so as we continue to try to be aggressive with it for Clemson, as part of the mentality.
Graham, so your wide-ranging impact was deemed to be pretty invaluable. That's pretty much the reason you got the gig, according to the board and everybody else. So who's the new Graham Neff under you, or is that more than one person?
Great question. Thanks, Gene. Working on it. So we will. I'm excited for our staff. And listen, we have a senior staff of about 13. I think I've been here and been part of the recruitment or the hire, or certainly just a peer colleague for, I think, 10 of the 13. So I get really excited just to continue to join that room and table, albeit maybe in a little bit of a different chair. And so want to continue to grow our staff and continue to retrench a little bit, but then add horsepower to the team, so to speak. So do anticipate to add some staff, various levels, and yeah, there's been some moments where it certainly felt like, not that I'm doing two jobs, because again, we've certainly had some delegation, but there is an empty, dark office with my old files in it that I do want to make sure that we're retooling in that regard. But given the staff we have, want to move expeditiously, but not urgent, and so have some time here over the spring as we get into it and sit with staff and see what fits best internally and externally.
Graham, the biggest hire your predecessor made was Monty Lee. I know you had a bad break there in 2020. They're having a great season until COVID. But what have your talks been like with him? How much urgency is there for him to have some postseason success this year?
Yeah, thanks, Trevor. Obviously, we love baseball here. I grew up in Atlanta. In the 90s, baseball was my first love. Pro baseball, Atlanta Braves, of course. But I love baseball personally. It's in my bones, and the success for baseball here at Clemson is really important. I know Monty had some time with a lot of you all earlier in the week. Monty and I talk a lot. We live very closely to each other, and so just the ongoing dialogue that we've always had, just from the baseball program, and the roster and scholarships. We talk a lot about scholarships right here and how we can invest and provide those resources. So, it doesn't feel, quite honestly, like a big change of expectation setting, or hey, I need to really roll my sleeves up with baseball. Like Monty and I's relationship, I was certainly with Dan and Kyle Young as we recruited and hired Monty. But I know he's excited, obviously, with the guys and with a lot of the returners and their accolades, and Caden and Will if he gets healthy. So excited for them to get going. So the dialogue that's existed with Monty, he and I will continue, and certainly as we get into wanting to have a really good year, it'll be important.
Graham, how does it feel to be the ultimate overseer of a football program that once again won 10 games, but widely perceived to have had a, quote, down year?
Yeah, Scott, thanks. In getting to 10 wins for 11th straight year, really cool. It's been an awesome, again, month, 6 weeks for me and coach. And again, we had off season, there's always transition, right? And particularly this time of year with football staff, recruiting, et cetera, what the offseason needs are. So he and I have always been engaged in that type of dialogue. And with Dan, it's just been a little bit of a different tact and tenor, probably a little bit more frequent this offseason than maybe years past, just given the role change. But I couldn't be more excited. And I've certainly been tried. I've had some external exposure here just to try to help continue to push the reality of the positive energy and mojo, what have you, out of this building. And it's one thing for coach to say it or assistant coaches, but I view it my role to further that, because it's a reality. It's not a cover. A lot of staff transition. It's a different chapter a little bit from a staff standpoint, and with having 3 losses for the first time in quite some time. So. With the returner, certainly the roster, with how coach has his vision for the staff on field and off, the reality of that really good excitement and momentum. Schedule was just announced, and obviously getting excited for that. So overseer of the program, gosh, that's a funny word, Scott. I just feel like, just an important partner with coach in helping to, provide him resources and thoughts and receive his thoughts as we are teammates in it, for sure.
Graham, can you comment a little more on the Clemson Plus, how that kind of came about, and just why you feel like now is a good time for that?
So February, absolutely. Again, we'll have a lot more pub coming out with it. February 15th is the launch date, and that's strategic because that's the first 50% deadline for IPTAY donations. And again, how we're tying in the business model of Clemson Plus, We're not aware of anybody else in the country collegiately that's doing it this way. And there's been a couple that have been announced, so we're not maybe the first mover, but we're a very, very early mover in this tech, this platform. But we do know there's a lot of other schools that may be working on it as well. And a lot of them are, all of them that we're aware of are all subscription-based, $4.99 a month, $5.99 a month, and now you have an immediate revenue stream with it. The business model for us is more of the long ball. So IPTAY membership, all current IPTAY members, 29,000 of them, including Collegiate Club and Block C, will have on February 15th access to Clemson Plus. So it's an added benefit to your current membership, let alone obviously the compelling nature for us to incent and grow membership. And so there is not the transactional immediate revenue stream with it. We're playing the long ball from a IPTAY membership, lifetime of giving type concept. Let alone we'll be able to tastefully advertise within it with our in-house multimedia sales team and have a couple revenue streams with it, but really it's just a product to be able to tell our story better. There's going to be great vault and archival games that we probably all put on. I know we do on Thanksgiving afternoon or things like that to watch the Ohio State Orange Bowl game in 13, those type of things. So there'll be great content that we have. Certainly we've continued to staff up and add more content to it, let alone just the other content or assets with it, with archival games, podcasts, etc.
Brad Brownell, for good or bad, is a lightning rod around here. Your predecessor got a lot of emails about him. We've talked before about what he has brought to the program. How do you handle this with him kind of going forward? What is your plan long term for that?
Yeah, thanks, David. And I think you all may know certainly how close Brad and I work together professionally and how we handle our staffing assignments, and we have sport supervisions. And so, basketball and football were really the two that I worked most closely with compared to all of our sports. And so I'm similar to the Monty conversation with baseball. I feel very in the weeds with Brad as a teammate and as our head coach, and certainly with the opportunities and successes of our basketball team. So, listen, we just flipped into February. Obviously, got a big game tonight. I know Brad is juiced and feels healthy coming off a little bit of the bye weekend, and I just get really excited for how he goes about it. Of course, and we all know how he leads the men in the locker room, culture, how he's engaged former players. Obviously, academics and compliance, particularly in men's basketball, right, is something that is a non-negotiable at Clemson as far as play by the rules, do it the right way. And when you have a head coach like Brad in a sport like college basketball, and what that means is just a huge comfort and a huge value, quite frankly. So all of those things off the field, Brad is off the court, Brad is spades, and get excited about where he has the roster and what's left for the season. That's where it's at.
Got time for one more.
Graham, you said on NIL, you said you want to still be aggressive, that's part of the mentality. How is that possible at present? And if so, what does that look like? Like how?
Yeah, thanks, Larry. You're right. And again, the moving puck analogy is kind of where I default to. Listen, there are things I think that within our state law and within the NCAA guidelines or legislation that we can do a little bit more aggressively. And that's not to say we haven't. Maybe the best way to phrase it, and this is not a Clemson isolated issue, it's more of an industry issue, I'd say, is this been a very passive type topic. Started in July 1st, and right, it's market driven, and student athletes are able to go build their brand and maybe solicit deals and dollars and activate that on their own, so to speak, from a marketplace standpoint. So athletically, again, Clemson and I think within the industry, we've been rather passive in, hey, we're going to educate you and we're going to help you build your brand. We have great social and digital team, and we're going to make sure you play by the rules, but then go do. And so I think now you overlay the competitive world and industry that we live in. There's been more need and calling within the industry, and again, I think here at Clemson, for us to be more active and aggressive, whatever thesaurus word we want to get out, for our support in programs and community engagement and internal engagement with our kids. So I think, again, just that maybe passive to active type presence, and what that exactly means we're working on, but that's kind of maybe the mindset that try to articulate. And again, I think that's an industry take, let alone at Clemson, and how we can become more aggressive, active within NIL the right way.
All right, thank you guys very much.